Greetings, programs. For this episode of Remake This Movie Right, we are going to go back to the 80s, when video games were nothing more than blips and bleeps, where Jeff Bridges was a computer hacker named Kevin Flynn, who hacked into the mainframe, got himself stuck inside a video game, and tried to take down the Master Control program. This is a film that has stood the test of time, has spawned one sequel, and is now getting a reboot, so you know what that means. That's right, it's time to get back on the grid and remake Tron right. Hello, my fellow cinematic architects, or should I say greetings programs, I'm not sure, and welcome to Remake This Movie Right. We are a member of the Hollywood Outsider Network. Listen to episodes of Remake This Movie Right on iTunes, where reviews are definitely appreciated, or your podcast app of choice. Visit the website at RemakeThisMovieRight.com. Remake This Movie Right is a show that takes an original film that has an actual remake in the works, figure out what still clicks and what doesn't, throw a little bit of humor at it, and then we determine exactly how Hollywood should remake it. So by the end of each episode, we will have the remake ready to roll for Hollywood execs and presented to you in movie trailer form. We're here to tell Hollywood how to remake this movie right. I am your host, Darren Peterson, and joining me today, you might remember him from our Stargate episode, as well as he runs the Southgate Media Group, a collection of podcast joys, Mr. Rob Southgate.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. This is a good one.
The movie or the remake? Which one?
The remake, the discussion that we're going to have. I know we're going to have a good one with this one.
Yeah, I absolutely, I think so. And from our Flight of the Navigator and Independence Day episodes, the host of the Gaming Outsider podcast, which coincidentally opens every show with Tron lingo, Mr. Scott Clark.
Hey, how's it going, man? I was getting a little confused when you started with greetings programs. I thought I was in the wrong show for a second. I was like, what's going on?
That is your thing, isn't it?
I'm the guest on my own show. This is weird. No. I'm looking forward to remaking this. This is a classic for me, and I'm looking forward to talking about it.
Well, if you haven't figured it out yet, for this episode, we are remaking the 1982 classic Tron. It starred a remarkably young Jeff Bridges as Kevin Flynn, a former employee of Encom, who now runs an arcade called Flynn's. Flynn wants to bring down Ed Dillinger, who's a senior VP of Encom, by hacking into the mainframe and gathering evidence, but he is repeatedly stopped by the MCP. Are you down with MCP?
Hey, you know me.
The Master Control Program, a program so intelligent, it begins blackmailing Dillinger as it attempts to take over the world. Flynn tries to get a security clearance for the Tron security protocol, which is supposed to monitor communications between the MCP and its users, and Flynn ends up being digitized by a laser and dropped into the game the MCP has developed to weed out the riffraff. Holy cow, I'm not even done yet. Of course, he's awesome on a light cycle, so he defeats them all, gets brought back to the real world, and ends up taking Dillinger and the MCP down while getting that sweet promotion to CEO. Holy crap, that's a lot of stuff in a movie that really was just neon.
Pretty much.
So let's talk about it. What are your first memories of Tron? Why is this movie so special? Scott, what was the first thing you remember of seeing Tron? It seems to be very special to you.
It is very special to me. I did not see this in the theater. I was only 2 years old. So even maybe I did. I just don't remember it. Maybe my parents took me. I don't know. But I watched this on VHS like clockwork when I was a kid. My best memory of this, watching it, is actually that when I actually eventually owned the movie, it did come in one of those clamshell like Disney cases, the plastic ones that the Disney movies came in. Mm-hmm. And that's a memory for me. This is one much like Flight of the Navigator. My parents rented this movie for me so many times that they should have just bought the damn thing like right off the bat, because I watched it so many times. This is like right in my wheelhouse for obvious reasons. It's got the draw with video games and all that. And just the look of it just drew me in as a kid. It just looks so cool. These guys in blue suits that light up and they can change colors when they touch each other, and light cycles, and it just all worked for me 100%. So my only real memories are home viewing, and which were many. What
about you, Rob? Do you remember the first time you saw Tron?
Yeah, I was 14 when it came out, so a little older than you. And I saw it in the theaters, of course. And I didn't care it was a Disney movie. It was a video game movie, so I had to go to this thing. It's funny because rewatching it now and thinking about how I felt about it then, because I remembered really digging it, thinking it was really cool and everything. And it was one of those things where at 14, I don't know if your friends are necessarily going to admit they were into it because it was a Disney movie at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't remember us like discussing it a lot, but I do remember being impacted by it. My friend and I would ride our bikes over the summer. We'd ride our bikes out to this pizza place, and we'd play Tron. We'd be doing the light cycles on our bikes and like knock each other off our bikes. No helmets. I'm surprised both of us lived. But both of us had seen the movie together and we loved it. We thought it was so cool, but I don't remember it being like a thing that other people were into. Did I love it? Absolutely. I was so into the look. And really after what I was going to get to about watching it now, I realized why it worked for me so much. I'm the same way now. The things that touched me then are the things that got me this time. When we get to what I want to change about it, what I want to fix about it, you might be surprised at what I want to keep. I'll just leave it there with that. But yeah, man, I saw it in the theater. I remember really enjoying it. When it came out on video, I didn't buy it. I think it was originally in the clamshell like you talked about, Scott, but I bought the DVD when I finally got it. And that was kind of that clamshell one where it had the larger box that had the 2 discs inside.
Yeah, it was the 20th anniversary. I actually had the same one.
Yep, I've got it sitting pretty close to me right here. I don't think I bought the videotape, but I probably had a copy of it, something I had copied off cable at some point that I'd watched quite a few times.
Yeah, I remember seeing it in the theater and thinking, that looks cool. Those are the coolest effects. Look, if you're watching it now, it is not the same feeling. But
no.
At the time, what people don't see in real, people look back and they see Star Wars and everything else. And they're like, well, those effects, they were there. No, these effects were not there. They were going for a lot of computer generated things that they couldn't do. And even Disney didn't get all the help that they really needed because a lot of the other animators didn't want to help them because they didn't want to help facilitate computer graphics taking their job, which I get to a degree. But everything that they were trying to do was kind of new to the world of film. And it looked cool. It looked new. And now it looks retro, but it was some kind of new life into film and cinema that I hadn't seen before and brought a lot of realizations to life because it did kind of, when you went and saw it, felt like you were in a game. And just remember, at that time, games were very simple. They didn't have a whole, it didn't look like a real world. It looked like it looks here. And they captured that pretty well. So I remember just being in awe that this is actually a movie. I'm actually inside a video game. Holy crap, I'm inside a game. And that was the
and it really sparked your imagination just about, at least for me as a kid, because I had no idea what the inside of a computer looked like or what the inside of an arcade machine looked like. So obviously I didn't imagine that things looked like they did in this movie, that you just had like physical programs walking around or everything was dark with just these like glowy bits all over the place. But it kind of just made me as a kid sit and wonder, what does the inside of these machines look like? And just my imagination just took off with this movie. And I love that part about it.
Well, and also if you think about 1982, like at that time, and you guys might not be able to relate to this as much, but that was the heyday for the arcade. So what got me in the very beginning was Flynn's Arcade and like that environment and like the back room, thinking, oh, I wonder if that's what's going on in the back room. There's some genius back there that's designed games. And, like that was a big thing. There were 2 arcades close by here. And like, birthday comes, I didn't want anything except, hey, could I have a stock of quarters? I can go over and play away, I remember they had the Popeye machine over here, and that was like cutting edge graphics at that time. So this really captured that. It captured the look and the feel of the arcade at that specific time.
Oh. I can almost smell the arcades. The arcades had like just a smell to them when you walked into them.
Yes.
So
yeah.
What did they smell like?
I'm not saying it's good.
Yeah, all I'm thinking of, it smelled like kids that haven't bathed in about 4 days. They smelled like fried chicken and M&Ms. I mean, yeah, that's what it smelled like.
Also smelled like a green puffy substance when you walked in there. And then the other one definitely had an ice cream, BO, and pizza smell.
Yeah,
Yep, that's
Very
what I remember.
specific.
I need to get that in an air freshener and hang it in my car.
Oh, God. All right, well, let's go into some trivia. But first, if you do have your own pitch for Tron or thoughts on this week's show at all, you can email them to rematethismovieright@gmail.com. That's rematethismovieright@gmail.com. But first, here's another clip, or here's your first clip from the movie Tron.
Hey, look, you guys are gonna make my user, Mr. Henderson, very angry. He's a full branch manager.
Great. Another religious nut.
I'd say welcome, friend. But not here, not like this.
I don't even know what I'm doing here.
You believe in the users?
Yeah, sure. If I don't have a user, then who wrote me?
That's what you're doing here. Master Control Program's been snapping up all us programs who believe. If he thinks you're useful, he takes over all your functions, so he gets bigger. And if he can't use you, he sends you down here to the game grid to get the bits blasted out of you. What's your name?
Chrome.
Ram. They'll train you for the games, but I hope you make it. Hey, what's been going on in the other sectors? You know, I've been stuck here for 200 microcycles.
Oh. It's murder out there. You can't even travel around your own microcircuits without permission from Master Control Program. I mean, sending me down here to play games. Who does he calculate he is?
Okay, now we go into trivia where we talk about some of the things that are most not necessarily known, but cool about the behind the scenes of the film. And to start it off, and these are always taken from IMDb, so if you have a problem with any of them, take it up with IMDb. Don't call me. The film was disqualified from receiving an Academy Award nomination for special effects because the Academy felt at the time that using computers was cheating.
Really?
Yeah.
That is a true thing. I remember back then I was really into movies, and I remember reading about that. And in fact, I think Last Starfighter had the same issue. It was still being considered, no, this is, these are computer animated. This is a cheat to doing things. Practical effects and hand-drawn animation are the only way to go.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Wow.
It's like,
if only they could have looked in the future and 30 plus years and seen where we are now.
Yeah, now go find a hand-drawn animation of anything.
Exactly.
Right.
That's called a sketch. That's all that is.
You mean you have to use your hands? It's like a baby's toy.
To go along with that, many Disney animators, like I was alluding to earlier, refused to work on this movie because they feared that computers would put them out of business. In fact, 22 years later, Disney closed its hand-drawn animation studio in favor of CGI animation. Hand-drawn animation was ultimately resumed at Disney at the behest of its new creative director, who ironically was John Lasseter, also the head of Pixar, who was in charge of CGI animation.
He's double dipping.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and actually, if you look at Disney itself, like when they did Beauty and the Beast, they had those segments that were computer animated.
Mm-hmm.
Then eventually all of that type of stuff became computer generated, but it looked like it was hand drawn. I believe that some of the stuff now, and I'm a little out of touch on this, but I believe some of the things now are more of a blend. But when we say hand drawn now, it's not the same. They're using Wacom boards and they're doing that. They're still considering it hand drawn because they're not mapping it out, but they're not drawing it necessarily on cells. I think that's where it gets a little sketchy.
Yeah, they need to go draw it on cell or it doesn't count. I think there should be some elimination clause.
That it has to be cell?
Yeah, that's what I think. Why not?
All right.
I just like that he said it was sketchy. That was pretty funny, man.
Thank you, Scott.
Was that intentional? Was that an intentional pun?
I'm going to say it was.
Good call. I always go with yes. Yeah.
Yes. I'm going with yes.
Also, okay, moving back to trivia. Although the film was an initial failure, the arcade video game based on it proved to be a tremendous hit and actually outgrossed the film.
That is interesting, considering it was 1 quarter at a time.
Yeah. It's a lot of quarters.
You know what? I could believe it because I think I put more into that machine than the film made.
Yeah, probably, man. Well, and that game was so cool for its time because it had like 4 different modes in it, which back in the early 80s, that had to be like just kind of a new thing. Every other game was just one game that you played over and over again just to get a high score. This one gave you options.
Yeah, and they were all pretty good, but it was all about the light cycles. Come on.
Yeah, that's all you wanted to do was light cycles. Who wanted to fight grid bugs?
Right.
Come on.
Let's just picture Rob walking around with $33 million plus in quarters as he played Tron, because that's what the original gross, and I'm just sitting here going, that's some heavy pants you're wearing, my friend.
Hey, man, they were cargo pants.
You could put a lot of quarters in those things.
You could.
Right.
Yeah. There's so many pockets. Jeff Bridges produced too much of, this is my favorite one, by the way. He produced too much of a bulge in the crotch area in his computer outfit, so he was forced to wear a dance belt to conceal it.
Get out of town. Are you serious?
It's a Disney
Is
movie.
that what that stupid thing was that he had on? I couldn't figure out why he had it, no one else did. Is that what it was covering up?
Yeah, it was covering up his Tron. Yep.
Wow.
Man, I want that in my IMDb page sometime, that my stuff was too big and I had to have it concealed.
Now you know why he still loves this movie. He's just like, I love Tron. Let me tell you why. Yeah.
Oh, man, that's funny.
I had to
Well,
wear
he's
a
the
dance
dude.
belt. He is the big dude, is what he is. All right. At the time, computers could generate static images, but could not automatically put them into motion. Thus, the coordinates for each image, such as the light cycle, had to be entered for each individual frame. It took 600 coordinates to get 4 seconds of film. Each of these coordinates was entered into the computer by hand by the filmmakers. If you listen to the complexity of what I just described, how that wouldn't count as some sort of Academy Award in some way, how that is counted as cheating versus hand-drawn animation, I don't understand. Because there is a meticulous level of craftsmanship to that I think should be appreciated.
I'll tell you why.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because old people. That's why.
I was actually going to say that. Yeah, it's that transition thing. They can't. The older Academy could not grip what this was, so it freaked them out. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Old people.
So
yeah.
you know, I had a thought about this, and this is getting a little bit deeper movie geek, but when you were just reading that, I was thinking of George Millay, because to bring color to his original silent films, he hand painted cells. I mean, that was meticulous, and that was like a big artistic endeavor. Not much of a difference here. I mean, yeah, they're not using paint, they're using another tool, but it seems like a similar thought, like a similar revolution was happening right here in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
It was. Absolutely, it was.
I mean, that's just 4 seconds, though. Think about that. There's a lot more than 4 seconds of that movie, and it was all 600 for 4 seconds. That's just mind-blowing.
Think how much time that actually took them.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like nowadays where you can you have the tools in there where you can just kind of manipulate a figure on screen like you see in the behind-the-scenes footage, and make the mouth move by flapping it up and down with a mouse or something. No, this is all individual coordinates planted in. Oh, man, that's just nuts.
Yeah.
So
you'd go blind from it. Can you imagine? When you're watching it now, you do see little flaws here and there. Mm-hmm. Not knowing that, you're thinking, well, how'd they miss that? That's how they missed that.
That's how they missed that.
I think Jeff Bridges would go blind from several things. Steven Leisberger, who's the director, you're talking about how much work it took. He only made a few movies, and I'm thinking maybe it's because he was just tired. I mean, just from this one, he was just tired. Moving on. Tron is also a debugging command in the basic programming language, meaning trace on. However, Steven Leisberger, who's the director, has stated in interviews, and I hope I said his name right, it might be Lisberger, I'm not sure, that he took the name from the word electronic and did not know about the basic command until later. So it actually has a corresponding command in computer language.
Well, it's a happy coincidence.
Yeah.
It's not like Gleaming the Cube. You ever see that?
Christian Slater.
movie?
Hell yeah, I saw it. I saw it when it came out in the theater, bitch. What?
Wow. Scott's like, what are you guys talking about? Gleaming the Cube, man. And that's not a skateboarding term.
Mm-mm.
So there's one where they tried to make something like, hey, this sounds cool. And every skateboarder went, I have no idea what that is.
Yep. I thought it was some skateboarding term for a long time. Wasn't.
Nope.
Nope. Last one. Flynn's program is called Clue, which is not the cool Clue. It's CLU. So it's net. No, it's not that Clue.
No.
It was originally thought that Clue was named after an old programming language. It was revealed in Tron Legacy that the new Clue, or the name Clue, was actually an acronym for Codified Likeness Utility.
Was that originally from the original movie, or did they just make that up for the new one?
I think they had to come up with something. They're like, well, what fits CLU? Codified Likeness Utility. That's what I think happened.
Computer language unifier? I don't know.
Wow.
Just come up
This
with
is
any
why
acronym.
you don't code. All right, let's go to the original.
Well, hey, I got a couple to share real quick, too, if you don't mind, before we move on.
No. Bring it.
There's a couple things that I didn't notice until my later years after watching it, because I actually still do love to go back and watch this movie from time to time. And did you guys catch the Pac-Man reference in the movie?
No.
The sound cue? I heard a sound cue.
Well, there was a visual cue as well. There's a moment where Sark is staring at the board, not during a master control program scene, but he's like in one of his command phases or something. You can actually hear the Pac-Man sound, but also on the boards that he's looking at, there's Pac-Man and some dots and some ghosts just kind of running around in circles on there.
Fantastic.
So, which was really cool. You got to go back and it's one of those that once I saw it, I could never unsee it. I could never watch that scene and not see Pac-Man in there and hear the sounds. So that's there. And also towards the end of the movie, there's a Disney homage, so to speak, when the I can't remember what the vehicle is called that's running along that beam at the very end, and they're flying over that like
like that ship with the wings.
Yes, like the sails or whatever.
Yeah.
As they're going over the surface, the ground has all these like electronic designs in it, and if you blink, you'll miss it. But there's a moment of it where it passes by, and you see an outline of Mickey Mouse's head in the ground there. No, I actually saw it. I watched this last night, and I totally saw it again. I mean, it was one of those things I didn't notice until my adult years. But yeah, they kind of threw a little picture, just an outline of the Mickey Mouse ears.
Wow.
And I mean, it's like so fast you can barely see it, but it's definitely there. So you got to check it out. It's pretty cool.
Very cool.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's fantastic. All right, let's go to the original. And that basically, here's where we talk about what we loved about the original and didn't love about the original. So first off, what makes the movie so notable, Rob?
For me, it's all about the visuals. In fact, you're going to think I'm crazy. This is actually what I want to continue with this. I want the visuals, for the most part, to stay like this.
I'm with you, Rob.
The backgrounds need help, but the environment, the way they dressed up the characters, all of that was fantastic. And that's what drew me in a big way. Drew me in again today.
Mm-hmm.
All
so
right.
that's my big number one.
Yeah, the visual style was amazing. It just looked like nothing I'd ever seen before. Even as a kid, I hadn't seen tons of movies at the ripe age of 6 or 7 whenever I first got a chance to see this. But the armor that lights up with just a little beams of light going through it was just so cool.
That was a really fantastic element to this. The textures, they couldn't do it at the time. There wasn't that type of texture mapping. So things are a little too flat when it's not the actors acting in that environment.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's what I want to see. That's what I want to see is that, because that was so cool.
Yeah, I kind of like the simplicity of the color schemes. Like there wasn't a whole lot of texture. And that worked for the story because it was supposed to be in a video game where these games didn't have textures. I mean,
right.
Back in the early 80s, it was everything was very flatly colored and it worked for the time. I kind of like that. I mean, it needs some help, obviously, and we'll get into that. But there's something about that stark contrast. Even as a 37-year-old guy now, my mind does not think that Flynn and these other guys are not inside those light cycles. It's just I'm just
right. No, I get you. I get you. The other thing, I'm going to point out one more thing, and I think I pointed this out on Stargate. I point this out every time. I like the music in this.
Yes.
I thought the music was cool. And there were times in this where I was hearing, a little John Williams, a little too close to John Williams maybe. But I dug how it was stripped down, and it kind of had that video game sound to it, It wasn't that flat out 8-bit sound that is so popular to work with now.
Mm-hmm.
But it did have that stripped down element. And I was really a fan of what was going on with the music in here.
Yeah, it's very synthesized, electronic sounding. It's a soundtrack I actually enjoy listening to even nowadays.
Really?
And
like you're just driving down the street and you just crank it up?
No, I mean, soundtracks are things I usually listen to when I'm doing some kind of work where I don't want to be distracted by lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
Just like to have something on in the background, and that's one that I throw on every now and then, just because the nostalgia is definitely there. And speaking of the music, there's something really interesting because this movie has a pretty big religious reference to it. There's a theme going on where the users are kind of considered to be like these godlike creatures, and the programs are kind of worship the users, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that kind of drew it to me, growing up in a religious environment. But coming back to the music, one thing I never noticed until I watched this last night, but during the credits, they play the Tron theme song on an organ to where it sounds like church music. And I never thought that.
I didn't notice that. I'm going to have to go back and listen.
I just noticed that earlier because I actually let the credits roll. I didn't mean to. I was just doing other stuff after it finished. And because I was watching it a second time too before the podcast. And that started cranking up, and I'm like, "What the hell why is there organ music all of a sudden?" And now I know.
And then the funny thing is, it goes to like right after that to like an '80s pop song or something.
Yeah, it just makes no sense. It's totally random.
Well, you know, Supertramp was supposed to be the band. Like when Queen did Flash Gordon, it was supposed to be Supertramp for this, but it just didn't work out.
That was
we had more pop music going on.
Yeah, that was a good thing. That wasn't a bad thing. That wasn't a bad thing. I got a question. Is this where getting on back on the grid started? Is it from this movie? Like that whole saying? I mean, you know, that's just we got to get back on the grid. You know, that's something people say all the time. Now,
or get off the grid.
Or get off the grid. Well, same difference. I mean, get off the grid, get on the grid. Did it stem from this, or am I just hoping it did so it's cooler?
When in doubt, say yes.
All right.
The answer is C.
You guys already talked about the light cycles. I didn't like the frisbee golf. I thought that was just weird. But Jeff Bridges,
frisbee golf.
He had a lot.
I loved the frisbee. No, they were playing highlight.
Yeah, it was dumb. So
I love that.
Jeff Bridges, I loved him because he seemed like he's the only character that was actually like we would be playing a video game. Like he was just having a ball, even when he almost died. I mean, he's just having a ball the entire time.
When he was hanging off the thing, he didn't even seem like he could die right there. You're right. He seemed like when he got pulled up, like, yeah, that was awesome. You know?
Like he was surfing. That was cool. I love his performance here. I was actually pleasantly surprised because I have grown accustomed. I've had a little too much Rooster Cogburn in the last few years, so I had forgotten how fun and light he used to be, you know, before he got all dudeish.
You want to make it more fun. Think about him the whole time listening to like a Walkman and listening to sounds of bowling. And then it really ties everything together, and it's even more fun.
Ties it together.
I see what you did there. Okay, so what no longer works? I'm going to start this out. It has not aged well. It has not aged well. It's one of the movies that when it came out, yes, it was revolutionary, but it did not stand the test of time. Much like Logan's Run, I think, is extremely brilliant for its time, does not hold up now. You watch this movie now, if you've never seen it, you will not understand why people still talk about it at all, because it does not work. It doesn't hold up. The ideas are cool, and some of the concepts are cool. Like the idea that good guys and bad guys have different colors. I think that's very cool, very simple, very basic. Everything else, not so much. The light cycles, I think, look cool in design, but when they're actually moving, just look insanely ridiculous. Now, I mean, then I thought it was the coolest thing ever. Now I'm looking at it going, what did they do? Just like hold up red cardboard? I don't know what's going on here. It wasn't good. And my other thing that doesn't hold up is the plot. You know, you heard me read the synopsis, and that is the condensed version. The plot is way too convoluted for a movie that's supposed to be about a guy trapped in a video game. I didn't think it needed to be that convoluted, and I don't think they do a good job explaining it. You know, I was telling Scott, as I was watching, I was texting him and telling him, you know, I'll be honest, for a movie that it's about being trapped in a game, they either don't give you enough information or they make it too complicated to understand. I don't even know which way it went, but it's one of those two. And it ends up being not as fun because of that. For a movie person, for a person that's interested in the narrative as well as the visuals, you know, I think there is a difference there that really can become a little frustrating to a degree.
Well, especially because even the games that Flynn played in the arcade, that like when he was playing Space Paranoid, or you saw somebody playing the light cycle game, it just looks super basic. So when Flynn goes into the real world and the games in the computer world look just vastly different than they do on the screen, it doesn't make any sense. Like, I understand that Flynn's really good at video games because he made these games, but what he's doing, just because you make a game where you're playing on a 2-dimensional screen does not automatically make you awesome at them, like in real life. Like, you know, you don't know how to control a light cycle with like actually riding on a bike or flinging a giant ball with what's that thing on his wrist that he's catching it with? It reminds me of those yard games from when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're not like automatically athletically powerful at these things just because you know how the game works. That always kind of bugged me a little bit.
Yeah, you know, I for me, what it came down to was the script was pretty much garbage.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of it wasn't strong enough, and I think that the things you guys are talking about, the errors in being overpowered for Flynn and being too convoluted, I think that all comes down to the basic screenplay and writing the character's journey. There wasn't really much of a journey, you know. I mean, there is, but he was just as good as at the beginning of his thing as he was at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And when he came out of it, he didn't have like a holy crap, what was I in? He came out, saw his name was on the sheet, and he's like, woohoo, I'm now president of the company. And it was like, well, where was the journey?
Yeah, there's no journey
to that. No.
Can we
think
talk about that for a second too? Because like, how does this piece of paper that's printed off of a computer just automatically prove everything? It's like a dot matrix printer. He just tears it off and is all excited. Like, he could have done that from home.
because old people.
Because old people. There's the answer.
That's new technology. It must be true.
Kind of
You know,
crazy.
I'm going to try that next time I go into a job. Like, I'm just going to walk in, like, I own the place, and hand them a thing and see what happens.
Exactly.
And this resume's legit.
But you know, you don't print it on a laser printer. You got to use like a daisy wheel, one of those old, you know. Then it really is legit.
Wow.
Did you guys also notice that when Dillinger decides to talk to Master Control Program for the first time, he like fires him up on his little fancy, you know, table desktop thing or whatever, and the password is master?
I didn't catch that.
How long did it take you to come up with that password, buddy? Like, like that's like the first thing anybody would try. Like,
Well, first thing would be password.
yeah, that too. No
Maybe-
numbers, no cap.
Maybe
no
password 1. Let's get creative.
password one.
You might be past him there. I was thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, master.
I've seen somebody
There you go.
with that password. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. True story.
Actually, a woman I worked with, that was her password on every single device. And her philosophy was, well, I mean, it's too obvious. Nobody's ever going to use that.
Yeah, that's how that works.
Oh, yeah, right.
That's
How's
how
that working
works.
out for her?
Well, you know, when she said it, she handed me, I forget what she handed me, it was her phone or something, and she said, do something, and I went, I bet I know your password, and that's what I did, and it went right in. So I'm going to say
Wow.
it didn't work out very well for her.
Wow. I do want to say that the whole concept, and we'll talk about it in the remake because I think I have a plan around it, but being digitized by the laser never made any sense. Even when I was a kid.
Nope.
It just
Nope.
doesn't make any sense. It's like, okay, so flesh, bone, everything, just okay.
Funny, I
This
Shrunk
is
the Kids sure
actually-
thought it was a cool idea.
It was like, we're going to forget all logic. We're going to try this thing to, boom, push him in there. And this is why I wrestled with this episode. Why I was so excited to get into it, because that was terrible. That was terrible. Logic and writing, it made zero sense to me.
Because it wasn't the original experiment just to like reanimate within the same space. Like, you're going to move an orange from here to over there, or
Right.
it didn't make any sense to bring it into the computer world at all.
Yeah.
It just seemed like
If
a
they-
lazy plot device.
Well, if they had shown them do it before that, and things went in and disappeared and they didn't know where they went,
Mhm.
then you could have gone like, well, what's going on? And then when he gets pulled in, you see on the ground like an orange and a pen, and he like they just roll away as he walks by. As the viewer, we would then buy into it a little bit, but there was nothing to indicate this was something that could possibly happen.
Okay, so should this movie even be remade, or should it be placed in don't touch status, Scotty?
It should definitely be remade. I think the story has a lot of potential to be awesome. I just think, like you guys have mentioned already, the script is just very, very loose. It needs a lot of tightening up and a lot of work done. I feel like they should have done as much work on the script as they did on doing those 600 frames for every 4 seconds. because it's very messy. It's fun. It's as a kid, I didn't care. I wasn't looking at this through an adult lens. It just looked cool, and the idea of a guy going into a video game was really cool. But and as cool as the graphics were in '82, they look so dated right now. And while Tron Legacy, the sequel, looked really cool, I really think, and I think Rob might agree with me on this, I think those visuals are almost too much for what I would want in a remake. There's something cool about that simplicity of the flat color scheme that was going on in this, because it worked for the story at the time. With the games look that way. Games do look a lot better nowadays, but there's still going to be that digital element to it. So as much of a classic as this is for me, it's very, very far from don't touch status. It's not that. I love the movie, but I want a fresh coat of paint for sure.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, Scott. I'm with you on pretty much everything you said. I think it deserves to be remade. I think that it does need a fresh coat of paint, but it does not need the coat of paint they did with the sequel.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well,
how about you, Aaron?
Yeah, remake it. Remake it now. Do it yesterday. I don't care. Yeah. And I agree with, I think Legacy had a cool score and looked beautiful, but there was nothing to that movie. So I would not do it in the same manner at all. I think it's a story that I think could be cool. I think it could be great. I think it could be really unique, but unfortunately I think they were more, it seems to me, we're more focused on, let's just bring a game to life visually. Let's not worry about, the nuts and bolts. Let's not worry about the actual programming, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
With that said, before we move on to the remake, here's one thing I do want to ask, or what we were just talking about things that don't work. What do you guys think makes it so difficult to make a video game movie or a movie set in a video game work? Because, you both have geek-related podcasts. You both talk about games or movies or both. And you know that historically, video game movies haven't worked, and movies that go to video games haven't worked. Not very often, except for Resident Evil, which isn't even really remotely revolving around the game, if you really look at it. What do you think is lacking or causing that problem, that it just isn't translating for that medium? Like it just hasn't really come to life.
Well, I'm going to say something first. This story has been remade at least twice very well. If you look at Wreck-It Ralph, which is pretty obvious, like they got a lot of it right. And if you look at the Lego movie is the same thing. We're entering this world that is, flat to us, yet they've got the user, they've got all this stuff going on. Pixels also, to some degree, played in this arena. I don't think it stands up to the other two, but they did do this concept right. Now, if we go to why video games don't work, you know what? I think we've already said it 10 times here. They spend so much time trying to make it look like the video game and trying to capture whatever the feel they conceive of for the video game. They kind of forget about the script. And everything starts with the script and the acting. They're doing it backwards. When somebody figures that out, we're going to get a hell of a video game movie.
I also think there's an issue with there's not as much overlap in the audience in terms of people that just absolutely love the video games and absolutely love the movies. I mean, you've got a lot of people that kind of like each, but that center of the Venn diagram where people are just obsessed with both is not as large as I think the filmmakers would hope they would be when they're making these kind of movies. Because the hardcore gamers are going to want the movie to remind them as much of the game as possible, and the hardcore movie aficionados are going to want it to be a good film. And it's hard to get that mix right. It's hard to do both things at the same time, and I feel like nobody's really nailed it yet.
Well, and I think it has to do with timing too. Because if you look at superhero movies, yeah, there were a couple of good things, in the past, but it was a long time before we had a good superhero movie.
Oh yeah, we're in the stage of the Avengers movie, the original Avengers movie right now in terms of video game movies, right?
Yeah, I'm going to go back even further in video game. I think video game movies are back in the 70s Spider-Man stage. They're still trying to work this one out. Punisher with Dolph Lundgren, they're still working it out.
Oh Jesus, man, back up!
Yeah, sorry. You know what? That might have been a little too far.
Don't bring Luke Gossett into this fight.
But seriously, the filmmakers, the people that are going to tell that story and know how to tell that story, maybe they're not of this era of video game, so they want to make it, but they don't have that connection yet. Well, I'm going to give it 10 years, and then we're going to see younger filmmakers that really get how this is done, that are going to be given the budgets and given the ability to make these movies, and that's when we're going to say, oh my God, Assassin's Creed is finally done right instead of the pile of garbage we got.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's timing.
How much timing do they need is what I'm going to go with. I think they still haven't figured it out. I think they're still trying. I think Scott was alluding to it to a degree. They're trying too hard to make gamers happy. And if you want a movie to succeed, if you want a movie to succeed, you need the movie to be good. You can emulate the game, you can mimic the game, but you need the movie to stand out and be its own thing. It can't just be the game, and you can't just follow the tropes of the game. A lot of people knock Resident Evil, and to some degree, rightfully so. I mean, they're not really deep films. They're entertaining. But what that series has done that has proved to be the most successful of its type is that it took the basic crux of the story, the whole Raccoon City thing, and made it its own thing. That is not part of the video game world, but it is connected. And even though it doesn't remind you really of the game when you watch it, you know where it stems from. And I think that's how you launch things. You have to make it more worry about the script, worry about the performances. Assassin's Creed tried so hard to make a movie that pleased everybody that loves the game. They forgot to make a decent movie. And
agreed.
Yeah, that was the biggest problem with that movie, because the movie itself has great performances. You have Michael Fassbender and what's her name? Dark Knight Rises, Marion Cotillard. Yeah, she's French, so I'm sure it's Cotillard.
Right.
But both her and him are great actors, and it wasn't an issue with them. It was an issue of the script, because they were trying to cram all of that in there. And it didn't end up blending. And then they made some poor visual decisions with blending the timelines. But, there's a lot of things like that. But that's what they keep doing. They're trying too hard. It's kind of like I think comic book films have suffered. When you get a comic book film that is made by people that love the comic but know how to tell a good story, it's usually a great movie. Joss Whedon's a prime example. But if you have someone who is only good at one side of that coin, you don't get anything
exactly. That's what we're missing. Is we're missing that filmmaker or that team of filmmakers that is fans of both, that know how to tell a good story, but are also familiar enough with the property to give it the love that it deserves.
And I think that's why I was saying timing, because the ones that maybe have that deep enough passion aren't quite in the positions of power yet to get those made. Mm-hmm. And I might be wrong.
Well, and another thing to add to with your timing aspect is that you also have to look at the fact that a lot of these video games that these movies are being based on take upwards of 20, 30 or more hours to complete. And granted, not all of that is narrative. There's a lot of just video game moments in those, but you're trying to compact a multiple hour experience and compacting that down into 2 hours.
Right.
And a lot of these characters that I've played in these games, I spent so much time with, and I grew up with them. I spent time with them. It had the same issue when you're trying to translate a book to a film. You're reading a book for a good 12 or 20 hours. You feel more closely connected to those characters than you do when you actually see them on film, because you don't have the time to get as much character development. You got kind of the same problem here. We're taking characters that have had dozens of hours for the audience to get to know them, and now you're basically giving them 20 minutes to get to know them before they get into the real meat of the story. That's a problem too.
Yeah.
Any thoughts before we move on to the actual remake? Any thoughts on Tron Legacy anybody wants to bring up?
I like Tron Legacy, but it was more for the visuals and just some of the nostalgic cues of seeing Clue again, because he got de-resed so quickly at the beginning of the first movie, and bringing him back was kind of fun. But I could not tell you what happened in that movie outside of light cycles and a pretty girl in a tight suit and that band. What's the name of that band that does the
Daft Punk?
I can't remember. Daft Punk. Yeah. Daft Punk being in there in the bar scene. That's like all I remember from that at all. Story was meaningless, but it was fun to watch.
Yeah, it's popcorn. It needed. That's another one that needed a good script. Tell me a good story. Go get a real story, and then we got something.
Well, we're going to make a good story. So before we do that, we need one more clip from the original Tron. Maybe it'll just be like, that's all I heard through most of the movie. Here you go.
Hello, Mr. Dillinger. Thanks for coming back early.
No problem, Master C. If you've seen one consumer electronics show, you've seen them all. What's up?
It's your friend, the boy detective. He's nosing around again.
Flynn?
Yes? It felt like Flynn.
You're still looking for that old file. Can't you just appropriate it?
I have. I put it in my memory, which he hasn't located.
But he might find it.
I'm afraid so. I spotted him this time and kept him out, but he's getting trickier all the time.
I think we should shut down all access until we find that Flynn, just to be safe.
There's a 68.71% chance you're right.
Cute.
End of line.
All right, here's what we know about the intended remake currently in the works. Disney canceled plans for a third movie and are instead looking to reboot the franchise. They're in talks with Jared Leto, whatever, and as of this recording, the Joker, as he's formerly known. And he is probably in talks to star. Now, Justin Springer, who co-produced Tron Legacy and executive produced the Tom Cruise sci-fi movie Oblivion, and according to The Hollywood Reporter, sources say that this new project is not a direct sequel and is being built out of the source code of the deleted Tron 3 script. Leto would play a character named Ares, who has not appeared on screen before, but was a key player in that script, so we don't really know a whole lot. Now, since this movie is getting a remake, and as fans, we always think we know the best way to do everything, how should Hollywood remake it? All selections are settled by a best-of-3 vote, with each host receiving one cut per episode to be used when they are extremely passionate about an idea. Now, don't use it for jokes, only use it for something serious. If you feel like, you know what, I feel strongly about something, I'm going to yell cut and I want it to go my way, that's when you use your cut. Everybody understand these rules?
Yes, sir.
Rob, we got to commit.
Yeah, don't you hear me?
No, I didn't hear you. I think you were you doing it like with your mind?
I was using mind bullets. I definitely understand. Yes,
Okay.
I'm in.
All right, let's do this. Let's make one coherent movie. Who wants to throw out their idea first? And what we're going to do is each of us are going to throw out, if you've never listened before, throw out our own pitch, and then we're going to mold this into one movie. Who wants to go first?
I can kick things off because I got a pretty crazy idea.
All right. Do I need note cards? Do I need to write some stuff down? What do I got to do here?
Maybe.
Right.
'Cause I got a lot of ideas, man. I watched this thing and I just had my fingers were flying on my phone taking notes while I was watching this movie, and just things that I want to do.
Okay.
So the number one thing I want to do is when this movie starts is I want the audience to think that the opening sequences or shots are in the real world. But within the first like 5 or 10 minutes, it's revealed that no, what we've been thinking is the real world is actually in the computer world. So the movie starts in the computer world instead of the other way around like the other movie did.
Okay.
And when it's revealed, when we actually do see the real world, it's revealed that lo and behold, the real world is actually like this post-apocalyptic setting where everything has gone to crap. And it has something to do with like the events in the first movie. I know this is rebooting it, but I want this movie to take place in a world where a story similar to the original Tron has taken place, but Tron failed in that one, or whatever character failed, and the Master Control Program has taken over this system and is now on a mission to basically reboot humanity in the way that he wants to, and wiping them out and starting from scratch.
Like the Matrix?
And kind of like the Matrix. A little bit of Ready Player One mixed in there in terms of, because computers still exist. Obviously, it's post-apocalyptic, but computers have to run for Master Control Program to be functioning still. So that's where I ran into a wall a little bit in thinking about this is, look, how do I make that relevant? How do I make it where, because you can just unplug Master Control Program and everything's be fine, right? Well, there's something that Master Control Program is doing to keep the world from utter destruction. Like if he goes away, then the world like blows up or something. He's got some kind of self-destruct timer or something. And he's holding the world hostage as he's trying to reboot the world, so to speak. That's how
he being like started. Kevin Flynn?
No, he being I haven't hit Kevin Flynn yet. Okay, this is all. I'm referring to Master Control Program as he. Should I say it to clarify it? But
do MCP. Say MCP. So so I can keep track in my head.
There you go. So the MCP is rebooting the world,
Mm-hmm.
holding the world hostage as he's trying to reboot Earth because he, as he said in the original movie, he can manage things 571 times better than any human can.
It's reminding me of Ultron.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, pretty much, kind of.
Yeah, but I'm okay with it. I'm okay with this idea. So yeah, but it is reminding me of Ultron there.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't think about that. I was worried about it not being an original idea, and I didn't think of Ultron at all. So
Scott, there are no original ideas now. They're all over. Just blendings of other ideas.
That's right.
Well, it gets more interesting from there. Do you want me to keep going on, or do you want to kind of ping pong off that idea?
No, because we're each going to give our pitches, and then we'll
Okay.
find out which direction we want to go the most.
So the next direction I want is going to be a pretty big departure from the original film, in that everybody that's in the computer world is considered programs. These are pieces of software that exist inside a computer that kind of bear the likeness of whoever wrote that program, right? Like Kevin Flynn wrote Clue, and it's played by the same actor. That always kind of bugged me a little bit. I love the concept, but it didn't work for me in a tight script kind of way. So again, going back to my original story of the MCP absorbing all of the programs from the story in the first game, he's rid the system of any and all other programs that are not a part of the MCP. So any likenesses in the computer world are actually digital identities of people that are in the real world. So, all of our information is somewhere on a computer somewhere. My social security number, my driver's license, my Facebook posts, everything is all as an identity. So these things in the computer system, when I see an actual person, I'm seeing a digital representation of the person in the world. And they still interface with their quote unquote user like they do, like the programs did in the original one. And that's how we still have the religious aspect that's still present in the film. But instead of it being every program in the original one, just they kind of worshiped the users like universally. Everybody was respectful to everybody's users. In this one, each individual identity has their own user, their own God that they look up to or that they communicate with. So it's more singular in terms of the religious aspect. You with me so far?
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you.
I think so.
All right. Now we get to Flynn. Kevin Flynn, the same character from the original one. He's a brand new character. We're rebooting. Flynn is on a mission. He's this real guy in the real world, this post-apocalyptic world. He's kind of a nerd. He's decided that he wants to go into this computer system to fix whatever disaster that has been caused by this computer world made by the MCP. So he's there willingly, like on a mission. He's not sucked into it. He's not drawn in by MCP, because that always bugged me in the original movie. Why did MCP bring him in? Just to like kill him in a game? Why didn't you just like shoot him with a laser and kill him right there? And it never made sense. So Flynn is sneaking into the system and on a mission to take out the MCP. And this is where it gets really weird a little bit. I love the idea, this religious aspect so much. And I love that these identities within the system have been coming up with their own like prophecy, going back to religion. There's this prophecy of this like Messiah character that's coming back to save them and save whatever problem is going on within this computer system. And it's so prevalent in this world that there are these these identities that are acting as these false prophets, or acting like they are the Messiah, trying to convince everybody that they're the one there to save everybody from the MCP. So when Flynn finally gets there and he is the quote unquote chosen one or the savior of this digital world, nobody believes him, because they're so used to all these frauds that have been taking place within the digital world. So he not only has to fight his way through there, but he also has to convince people that he's there for good reasons and not for malicious reasons.
Okay.
And then Tron himself is actually Flynn. We're not having two different characters. I don't want Flynn and Tron to be like working together. Flynn is the Tron. He's going in, and that's the name that they have for this Messiah character is Tron. And that's kind of what he's named himself, because he knows that he's there for that purpose. So Tron is Flynn's likeness, but he's much more warrior-like. That's one thing that I loved about the first time you see Tron in the original movie, is he just looks like this warrior. He's so awesome with his identity disc, and he's just super awesome in battle, but we barely see it. You just see the disc fly around once in a while. I want Flynn to be the opposite of real world Flynn, who's like kind of nerdy. He's a computer guy, but his likeness in the world is the one that he creates of himself, that he wants himself to be, which is this like hardened, chiseled, warrior of a guy that is going to be taking down the MCP. So Tron goes through and he does his job, brings down the MCP. At the very end of the movie, when the MCP is brought down, all these programs that were absorbed into the MCP at the end of the last movie, when we have the alternate ending that MCP won, they're now released. So Flynn gets to go talk to these programs that were released from the MCP, and that's where we get our infamous greetings program line worked into our movie. And you'll notice that there's one big thing that's missing from my story, and that's the video game component, which I'm shocked that I don't have a large video game component in my story.
Yeah,
because
so am I.
I'm a huge video game nerd. So I think there's gonna be a theme there, but it's gonna be only mildly present, because I liked my lead up story so much so far that I was okay with it being a lesser portion of the story. I think the games will still exist there. These are games that were again absorbed by the MCP as programs that act now as his defense system against Flynn/Tron, who's coming into this world to try to stop him. So Flynn is fighting through these games in order to get to the MCP, and not to mention travel. That's where you get the light cycles, because that's how he gets from place to place, and we still have that in there too. So,
okay.
Wow, I spoke a lot there. I apologize for taking so long, but I'm really passionate about this idea. So what do you guys think?
Everybody hash them out first, and then we'll go through them.
All right.
Otherwise, I don't want people to get discouraged from their ideas. So, Rob, sure. you next or last? Which one you pick?
I'll go next, actually, because I think I'm going to be anticlimactic. It's funny because a lot of what you said were similar conclusions that I came to. See, when I was watching this and I was thinking about what would I do, I actually kept thinking it really has to be a remake. It is a reboot of this whole thing, not a continuation or anything. And that's what you're doing, except you've got that nice little element of maybe the elements of the first movie are buried in here somewhere. I liked that quite a bit. Mm-hmm. I hadn't thought of that. I did have that same idea that I wanted Flynn, when he was in the program, to be Tron. I think that's really important, because that's actually a point of confusion for most people. Even when they did the sequel, people thought Jeff Bridges would be Tron, and he's not Tron. I like the idea of that being his alter ego. Now, the biggest thing that I wanted to see happen with this was, I keep talking about the story. I want, when Flynn is in the computer, and I wanted him to jack in. So we've got, what we've seen in other films. We've got what we've seen in Matrix. We've got in Johnny Mnemonic. Whatever's happening in the real world, I wanted to be kind of post-apocalyptic. This computer is becoming sentient. It is trying to, it believes it's trying to save the world, and Flynn is sent in to stop it. And they jack him in. So it's a little Avatar, a little Johnny Mnemonic. Similar themes that we've seen. I'm a big Philip K. Dick fan. That's where I was kind of coming from, that paranoia and how do we stop the machines, yet he's a nerd. But I was thinking, having him be the opposite of the action hero, when he's in there, maybe... See, I don't know if I would have Tron transform into that. I was thinking of having Tron have somebody that he saves, who, by him saving this person, it allows that person to stop the MCU, and that person is more your hero type. See what I'm saying? So you've got kind of the nerd doing it, but I wanted to have the hero's journey play out. So Flynn gets put in there. Maybe it's reluctance when he goes in, but they know that he's brilliant. He's actually part of being the architect, and they don't know who he is. They don't know what he's about, and he's kind of resisting, and we go through that hero's journey with him until he finally accepts, saves the day by essentially saving Tron, and then we get to see the Tron story play out as he battles the MCU. So, like I said, I think mine is a little weaker, but I saw so many parallels to what you were saying, and I'm thinking, you know what? If we could just get that hero's journey in there, it would tie us to the Flynn character more. Because right now, he didn't have any journey whatsoever.
Right.
Not at all. And I don't want it to be flat. I want us to feel his pain. I want us to feel that he's frightened in this world. Because let's face it, if you jacked in, I don't care if you know you're jacking in, this would be frightening.
Mm-hmm.
yet at the same time, it can't be paralyzing fear.
Right.
And we want him to get over it and move on. You'll see what I mean when I talk about my director and everything, but I'm not doing that yet, Aaron. I promise you.
That's right, because you can't give a director a cast if we haven't decided on a movie yet. Just can't do it. The reason being is that once people start doing that, then they're cemented on their ideas, and they're no longer, per experience, they're no longer open to everybody else's. They're only like, just this is it.
And I'm not cemented at all, so I'm not going to throw anything more out there. Let's go to you, Aaron.
Okay, so I want to do more of a straight reboot, but completely modernize it. I think the original plot needs to be minimized, streamlined, cleaned up, and it should be a little bit simpler. Even though I've got a lot to go over, it doesn't mean that it's really simple at its core. So a major game developer has developed a major franchise. I would think somewhere along the lines of an MMO or a connected universe of sorts. Okay. Kevin Flynn has his idea stolen and has been forced out by a man named Ed Dillinger. So you have same character names. For testing purposes, several virtual reality pods have been constructed so that, and this is because I really need to get around that laser thing because it bugs the crap out of me. So several virtual reality pods have been constructed, and that the reason for that is so that developers can enter the world and identify bugs or glitches basically on site. So they can go into the code and identify on site. And these are very futuristic, complete with suits that monitor your health, your vitals, etc. Everybody with me so far?
Yeah, I get built-in HUD.
Yeah, there you go.
Once again, Avatar.
Yes, better than Avatar because it won't suck. All right, so Kevin realizes that Dillinger is missing a piece of the evidence that would clear him. So Kevin can clear his own name, get his job back, get Dillinger fired, and everything else for this small piece of evidence, but it's buried deep into the code of the game. He realizes he can never gain access to the mainframe unless he does it via a virtual reality test pod. So what he does is he hacks into it, but once he does that, it disarms the security protocols that are put in place to remove him from the game if, like, his vitals spike. So essentially, meaning if he does die in the game, he will die in the real world.
Sure.
There you go. So there's a connection.
You've upped the ante. Yes, we need that.
So to me, this solves the issue of how Kevin can be dumped into the game without making it look insanely stupid and have lasers digitize him, like I said. And once he hacks into the game, he's Clue again. And he's forced to meet up with Tron, but I'm not cemented on that idea. I do like the idea of actually having Kevin be Tron just because that confuses me to this day. I'm like, why is a movie called Tron? It's not really about Tron, but whatever. But he's forced to meet up with Tron. And these two end up enduring several different gaming environments to locate the proof. Now, the reason for that is that the one thing I felt about Tron is when you watch it, it's emulating video games of its day. So if it's going to be remade, I want to emulate video games of today. You know, that's one thing where I think Legacy especially failed because all it did was mimic the exact same thing. It just updated the exact same movie. I want to actually bring in gaming landscapes of today. So since it's a very large game developer, you can have multiple kinds of games before you arrive at the main one. So we would go through like a racing simulator, and you would have light cycles, of course, for that. There would be an adventure game like an Uncharted or something, or Tomb Raider, where you live through like a mini treasure hunt scenario where you're looking for a key to get to the next part. There's a stealth scenario where the entire goal is to not be seen or you're immediately killed. And finally, when you arrive in the big game where Clue and Tron must level up by completing a couple side missions, you know, just like a real game, in order to take on the big boss, which would be the MCP. So Dillinger's security is still a factor of this as well. So he defeats him, but I'd even have it done like a game. Scott, you might appreciate this, where it takes 3 distinct strikes, maybe one including a frisbee attack, and he's dismantled. And after those 3 attacks and he's brought down, the proof is found, he's pulled out, and Kevin Flynn wins it all. Boom. That's my movie.
So you're saying 3 attacks on the MCP, like 3 hits? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, like a big boss, like a boss battle. Yeah.
Got him in the glowy bits.
Exactly, something like that. And I think to me that gives you the sense that you're in a video game, but it also gives you the sense of engagement with your creativity and wonder, and also kind of gives people a feel for why other people love video games. Like this is this is why we love them. This is the cool world. I think if you have those different aspects, like you have light cycles in a race of that sort, you have the treasure hunter feel of a game like that. You have a stealth mission, which is really popular these days. And then you final up in a game that requires you to level up to fight the big boss, that kind of thing, because you're not able to at first. That kind of stuff. I just think that.
So, I mean, the way you're describing it, it sounds almost kind of like that movie Dread. Remember Dread, where they're going up the tower? Like that movie basically felt like a video game, right? Because they're going up a tower.
And it did it very well, yes.
Right. And like trying to go up and fight a final boss. That's what your movie sounds a little bit like. Like you're going through these different scenarios to get to the final boss.
Kind of.
You want your movie to be kind of like
through
that.
the different stages of hell to get to the final stage.
Essentially,
and then I like the idea of having the boss be a boss battle. I'd be careful not to make it Scott Pilgrim, but I think that if you did get there, maybe to avoid that is make it more of a Shadow of the Colossus final battle where you've got this overwhelming boss.
And
you have to figure out the puzzle, not just level up, but you got to figure out the puzzle to beat it. I think that might be an interesting approach.
Interesting. Climbing around like the bosses, like MCP is now no longer just this dumb red tube that spins around. We're not going to do that anymore.
Yeah. When you get there, it manifests itself as a final boss, but rather than like, hey, it's Bowser and it's twice my size, it's 400 times your size, and you go, oh
no, take it even one step further. He's got a final form. Because bosses always have like 2 or 3 forms, right?
Yes.
So the first time you come across
one, boom, different form. Second time, boom, different form. Final one is a Colossus, and you're like, oh, crap. Yeah, I like that.
Right. And we get kind of tied into my idea with that too, in that he's pulling all of these assets in order to manifest himself as these bosses from the game software that he has, absorbed into himself because that's what he does. That's what Master Control Program does, is he just takes all these programs and assimilates them to be this one collective, right?
Yes.
So he's got all these programs built into him, and you could even put, I know you want modern games in there, but he's been collecting these for over the years. So you could even throw in some old ones in there or something just to mix it up. But I don't know if that would work.
He's a little bit like Beautiful Katamari, only collecting boss battle things from video games.
Exactly. I love that you know that reference, man.
Hey, this is the video game episode. I got to throw them out there.
So what do you guys want to do? I mean, which take are you kind of married to, or do you like the most, etc.?
Here's my worry with going the virtual reality route, because I toyed around with virtual reality as well. And the reason I shied away from that aspect of it in my story was because, and I know you haven't read the book, Aaron, but Ready Player One is very much that. It's that, or Sword Art Online is this deal where you're jacked into a system, and if you die in the world, you die in real life. So I was worried about stealing too many different ideas from different properties between those two, especially with my post-apocalyptic setting, because that's kind of like what Ready Player One does as well. I'm not saying I'm against it. That might be the easy fix. I was worried about if I threw out virtual reality, that was just going to be the easy answer. I was trying to go a little bit more clever. I really like the idea. I really like the idea that the computer world looks like what our modern world looks like today, but that's the computer world, and the real world is post-apocalyptic and gone to crap.
Me personally, that's too Matrix, because that's all I kept thinking while you're giving your scenario. And it's not against your scenario. I kept thinking that's the Matrix, modern world.
Wait. Well, what if the real world and the virtual world are almost identical, but when we're in the virtual world, we can see a simulation from the master computer that shows us when it's complete, outside world is gone. So we have a hard time discerning the two, but there'll be clues. And the reason they're jacked in there is they figured out what master computer is doing and that it is leading to this. So if he fails, the computer world will be fine, but the outside will be, shot to hell. Rather than seeing it that way, it's kind of before the turn. Almost Terminator. We're trying to prevent Judgment Day.
Mm-hmm. I think the concern there is that your audience is going to need something more than a clue to be able to discern the two. I mean, look at the original Tron. It was night and day, computer world versus real world for obvious reasons. In Legacy, you had non-3D and 3D between the real world and that. You know what I'm saying? I would be concerned about our audience getting confused about which is real and which is the computer world. Or is that something you want to do is play with the
maybe
audience.
You see the entry point when they go into the entry point, the essential waiting room is that world of Tron that we like so much. That weird black and white with the color over it. So that's how we know we're going in there. That's how the audience knows this is the entry point. And then they get in and it's like, well, this looks the same, only maybe, I can't eat. Like he tries to grab an apple and like, I can't eat. And now you know you're in that setting from then on.
Okay, so you want to do what the original did, and we're not going back and forth.
Right. I want to stay in there.
Okay. Gotcha.
So what scenario are you feeling, Rob?
I'm leaning towards Scott's. Scott's is the one that what I was thinking of is closest to. My stuff was just enhancing that. I like yours, but once again, I think we're falling a little too close to Matrix. I was actually leaning towards like Edge of Tomorrow, and I'm afraid to go that way too.
Which one's too much Matrix? Because I think Scott's is more Matrix, post-apocalyptic, and which is exactly what the Matrix was.
Well, maybe I'm wrong. I liked Scott's. I'm going to say that.
Okay.
With yours, I like the video game elements that we were just talking about, but it seemed a little too video game-y for me. I like the idea of being further from that and having it be this computer environment that we're dealing with, but I do like that boss battle. I do like that ultimately, because he was a gamer, because that environment has games in it, that we end up in this boss battle type situation. But I think having the stages of video game, that doesn't interest me as much.
Okay.
I feel kind of the same way. I kind of like the idea of staying away from video games, as weird as that sounds coming out of my mouth. I feel like
it is Tron, though. I mean, the whole thing is he's trapped in a game. So, I mean, if you get too far, then you alienate your core audience, I would think.
Well, but Tron wasn't.
He was caught in the internet, which didn't exist then, really. He was caught in computer. I mean, it did exist, but that's not what they were saying. He was caught in a computer. He was caught in the world of computers. Now he would be caught in the virtual world of the internet.
So
right.
How would you make that work then?
Being caught in the digital world of the internet?
Here's what I don't want. Like, I don't want to be, he thinks he's in the real world, but he's actually trapped on a slab.
No, I think he knows he's going. No. He's getting jacked in and knows what he's there to do. He's just, in my opinion, he's a little more reluctant to it. The essential character types are still there, and you are getting jacked into it. It's just we're not specifically in game, and that I think that saves us from becoming Wreck-It Ralph.
Right. That's kind of what I was trying to avoid, was it being like a Wreck-It Ralph kind of thing where we're just going through the different games. I mean, in the original, the games were more or less like gladiatorial matches. That's all they were. Is they were there for a way to kill people and make them thinking they were playing games. I mean, even that was kind of unclear in the original. It was gladiatory matches, wasn't it? Gladiator matches. Much.
Yeah.
But why? Why not just kill him?
Yeah. Why didn't they just kill Flynn? He knew what he was.
Rob's on your side. So that's 2 against 1. So we're on your scenario. Now I'm just trying to figure out how to make it work. I do think you have to have more reminders of the original movie, because as of right now, to me, as someone who's not as avid a fan as you guys, which is kind of surprising to me, I don't see it as a Tron movie right now. I see it more like The Matrix. So bring me to where this is Tron, I guess.
Well,
I see your point, because
I think it's that what he is doing is he has created the Tron program to take down the master computer. That is the same element from the first film. Only it's one guy that's created it rather than having these 2 characters, which doesn't really make sense. I think that is the same. I think if we give elements from the original, we have him in the light cycles. We have him fly one of those things. I don't know what they call them, but that thing. That would be
recognizers.
Really cool. Yeah. And maybe the way he gets to that final boss is in one of those, that weird ship with the wings. I mean, that would be cool. That's where you are Tron. But instead of saying this is a video game movie, it is a computer simulation film. And really, things like The Sims and those are video games, and that's all this is. Virtual reality. It's a virtual world. Let's not say virtual reality. Let's call it Second Life. You're dealing with that.
Okay. Okay. But you would incorporate the boss battle. You still want
absolutely. I think that's what makes it really video gamey at the end. But you don't make it like First he's Bowser, then he's Eggman from Sonic, and now he's the gigantic. No, I think a video game fan is going to know you're at your final boss, and it's transforming. It's going to be one of those cool things that but to the people that are watching it that aren't video game fans, it's just going to seem like this is the character they've been after, and wow, they can't beat this thing. And maybe you have characters die.
I like that. Yeah.
At this point.
Like right before the final form, like as he's transforming, he kills off a major character or something like that. To me, the video game element is kind of Master Control Program's Hail Mary right before Tron is about to off him. He like throws these video game programs as an obstacle right towards the very end, and that's not like the main component of the story. It's just kind of like his last ditch efforts. These old school programs that he's collected over the years, and he has nothing left, and it's all he's got left, and it's his last defense before Tron gets to him.
Okay, so shortened version, truncated version. You do have a post-apocalyptic world where the computer won. Like, so this scenario happened maybe in 82 or whatever, but it happened a long time ago and the computer won. So it isn't a situation where we prevailed. We created AI and it destroyed us. But it's trying to reboot mankind in its own way, doing it how it sees fit. Maybe it's reconditioning our minds by this virtual world or something like that. And
basically making us robots, more or less.
Yeah. And we think we're in the real world, but we're not actually in the real world. And Kevin is the guy that he's like seen as the Messiah. Am I remembering that right? I know it was a little bit ago, so I'm already confused.
Yes, but I'm still having Kevin starting in the real world, like in the original movie. Rob was alluding to earlier, like he still has to jack in at some point, and because I want to see his character as Kevin Flynn in the real world, and I like the idea of him being Tron. Like he is Tron, but his Tron persona is more like what he wants, more like what he wishes he were in the real world, instead of the nerdy computer geeky guy.
Right, instead of who he actually is. You know what? I just had a thought too. Skipping to the end for a second, let's pull a Planet of the Apes at the end. So after the boss is beaten, we've seen a little bit of the apocalypse at the beginning. We know that it's different in the world. We go with that. When he beats it, he comes out. Maybe we have a double blind. He comes out. Everything looks great. As he's leaving, whatever that tell was that he was in the virtual world, he catches again. When he catches it, we get a glimpse then of the real world, and he did not beat the master computer. Apocalypse still happened.
So he fought like a mini boss.
No, yeah, I don't like that.
Or it didn't.
I think
you don't like that.
No, I don't like that because technically that already happened when the movie starts. He already won once, so I think that would be kind of like a cop out. I think if he's gonna win, he's gonna win.
I'm not married to it.
Yeah, personally, I mean that's my personal choice. I would.
No, I'm with you, Aaron. I'm with you because we already saw that battle, or I mean, we didn't see it. We saw it in Tron.
We know what happened. Yeah.
Yeah, there's going to be some backstory about it, and it's not going to be the original Tron story that we know. It's going to have a different ending that has left the world in ruins, basically. Okay,
so we got to wrap this story up so we can get to the acting and casting. So, truncated version. So what happens?
So we've got a post-apocalyptic world that has been put in place by the Master Control Program, who took over as an AI 30 years ago, and has more or less destroyed the world in its pursuit of rebooting humanity in the way that it feels it can do better than humanity ever did on its own. Kevin Flynn is a computer guy in the real world that is on a mission to go that wants to bring Master Control down, remove the AI so that the system still stays in place and allows humanity to reboot itself instead. And he decides to do this by jacking himself into the computer simulation, taking on the persona of Tron, which is a program that he wrote in order to basically kind of like an antivirus software or something like that. You know computers better than I do, Aaron. You can probably think of a better software than I can.
Yeah, but it's more fun hearing you try to say it.
What, you want to hear me try?
This is more fun when you try to say it.
There's lots of switches and stuff. No, and so he jacks into this world and takes on the persona of his program that he wrote, and on his way there, he goes through the motions to get to Master Control Program. There'll be a lot of storylines that go in between. But as he gets to Master Control stops him, is unsuccessful. As a last-ditch effort, throws these video game programs at him as a defense mechanism, like a Hail Mary pass, to stop him, and wind up with a final boss, and I say that in air quotes, against Master Control that is a Shadow of the Colossus-style boss that Tron has to navigate through, figure out a way to get to the core, destroy it, and bring everything back to normal.
Saves humanity.
Mm-hmm.
Bum-ba-dum. I love it. All right, we got a movie.
I love it.
I love it. Well, Rob, you and I had other ideas, but Scott won in the end, just like Tron.
I'd watch Scott's movie, so he wins.
There you go. Director, who should make our movie? Rob, you go first. Who do you think should direct this soon-to-be masterpiece?
Doug Liman, the guy that directed Edge of Tomorrow. I think he gets this. I think he can do action, which is what we need.
Mm-hmm.
I think he understands how video games can be done cinematically, because Edge of Tomorrow got it right. And I think that this would be a completely different type of look and story. I think he could do a great job with it.
I agree with you. The Edge of Tomorrow basically was a video game movie. If you think about it, it wasn't based on a specific property, but he was leveling up throughout that movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what he was doing. I like that pick. I went with Alex Proyas. Is I'm pronouncing that correctly?
Mm-hmm.
Proyas?
Yep.
He did Dark City, iRobot, The Crow. I think he's got. I mean, the iRobot connection really got me, because he has the eye for that kind of movement, which I feel would work well in a Tron world. Dark City was a gorgeous movie. I don't know. I think I like Rob's better, but I'll throw that one in the ring anyway.
Yeah, he also did Gods of Egypt, so I'm going to go with Doug Liman on that one.
Oh, Gods of Egypt took you down.
I love Alex
Proyas.
Great. It looked beautiful, but there's no cohesive story in it. So I was
going to say, he's not worried about a script after he made that one.
No, he just, man, it's pretty. That's what good old Alex. I love Alex. I'm actually friends with him on Facebook. True story.
Nice.
But no, no. I would go with Lyman. Good call. Who's our lead? Who's our guy? Who's our main guy? Who's Kevin Flynn? Scott, it was your idea that won. So who's your dream casting?
I wanted somebody that could play both the nerdy and the warrior aspect, so to speak, that could do it. And the guy that I came up with was Ben Foster.
Ooh, that's a good call.
I'd like to see him. Yeah, I haven't seen him in a lot lately, and I kind of miss him. Man, if you saw Hostage, he was scary good in that, but then you have other movies where he's a little bit meek, and I think he could pull off both of them in that, and I'd like to see it.
Hell or High Water. If you haven't seen it, watch that.
Yeah?
Yeah, he's great in that. What about you, Rob?
I think that's a perfect choice for Flynn, actually. I was going different ways. I was before we landed on what he had, what Scott came up with, I was picturing Flynn a little differently, but I don't think it works. I was thinking like a Dan Fogler, where he can be really nerdy, but it would be interesting to see him play against type and be the hero. The problem is that might turn into... Yeah. Did you see Fantastic Beasts?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he was good.
He was great in that, yeah.
He's a good time. The only problem is it might turn into a Jack Black light version of this, and I don't want that. Now, I also thought of someone I thought would be interesting. Oh, what's her name? Sonequa Martin Green. She plays Sasha on Walking Dead. Or Tatiana Masley? It's the woman who plays the main character on Orphan Black. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think either one of those would be an interesting choice. And once again, breaking form, we could see them play vulnerable, especially like Sasha has played vulnerable a lot.
For which character are you positioning these?
For the Kevin Flynn character.
Oh.
We have to call him Kevin.
Gotcha.
That character. If we're having an Alan Brady type, Alan Brady, is that from Dick Van Dyke? If we're having the Alan Brady type, Tron, we don't have that character anymore. And I don't think we need a second male companion. Mm-hmm. So if we use Foster for Flynn, maybe the second character, which in this case was it Laura or Yori? They have two names and everything. That's where maybe we use Sonequa. I think she'd be really a good choice there, personally. And then I think I'd like to see for the Dumont character, so the old programmer that is in the game and kind of helps them. I think it'd be interesting to do like a Jessica Lange for that. Somebody let's get going against type, or a Michael Emerson, or let's get both of them in here. Make them interesting characters they run into. You don't know if they're friends, but they end up helping the character to move them further in the game.
Okay.
All right.
That's interesting.
Here's what I'm gonna do. So I'm already gonna yell cut because I want my guy to be Kevin Flynn. But I'm gonna try and sell you first.
All right.
if that helps. That's what I'm gonna. I like Ben Foster. I don't think he can carry a movie himself. So my choice is going to be James McAvoy.
I ain't mad at that.
Nope, I'm fully on board with that. I love James McAvoy.
Sweet. I still used my cut, but still, that was my big one. James McAvoy.
That's an easy one, and that's one of those choices when you say it, it's like, who's going to argue James McAvoy? The guy's fantastic, and he fits this perfectly.
Boom. How about a villain's voice? Yeah. Do you have any ideas for a villain? I assume it's mostly a voice because even when the battle happens, it would still be kind of animated. So.
Well, I actually still had a casting for Sark, who was the Dillinger component within the digital world. I was looking up who just thought would make a good villain.
Wait, hang on, is Dillinger in your movie? Because you didn't mention him at all.
No, and that's where I'm kind of hitting a wall. But I'm wondering if this guy's voice might work anyway, either as a voice or as a physical embodiment of the Master Control program at the end, like maybe his first form or whatever. If that's what we're going to go with, is Jason Isaacs. Who was, I know him most from the Harry Potter movies. He played Malfoy's father.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
He just looks evil anyway, but I could see him playing a villain. He could even do the voice, though, too.
Yeah, what about you, Rob? Anybody suggested for the villain? For MCP?
You know what? That's where I'm going to go back to the two that I liked for Dumont, either Jessica Lange or Michael Emerson. I like
Michael Emerson would be perfect because he's very disarming, I think.
Yeah, well, and I think he'd be interesting to see in that role because once again, he's got that nerdy element. But think about him when he was on Lost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I mean.
You knew this guy is really bad.
He just has that way of staring at you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm going with Michael Emerson.
I second Emerson. I do.
That's fine.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we got a movie. Are there any nostalgic moments? I know Scott had some that you definitely got to see in this reboot remake. Scott?
You definitely have to have greetings programs in there somewhere. That's near and dear to my heart for obvious reasons we already alluded to at the beginning of the show. There absolutely has to be light cycles in there. You can't have a Tron movie without light cycles. It's like against the law or something. I'm pretty certain. I really like the religious aspect. We didn't really add that in our story.
You did. You said it like 8 times. Messiah, Jesus. Praise the Lord.
We didn't really. We didn't have it in our final our final synopsis. So I didn't know if we were actually still doing that.
Well, I asked you to explain it. So explain really how it fits. I don't get how it fits.
I just like the idea of this. I just like the interaction between people in the real world and people in the computer world. The way that they communicate is much like religious people communicate with higher beings. Like that, just being that correlation just kind of was interesting to me, and just an interesting look at religion in general, which was fun for me as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
How you make that tie in? I mean that could be one of the stories leading up to. I mean, there's got to be some meat in the middle. I don't want just a bunch of fluff, but there could be some aspect of him having to contact some religious leaders and convincing them that he is Tron, that he's not just some wannabe that's posing as the Messiah or something like that. It could be in there. I also really like Master Control Program's end of line that he does whenever he's done talking. That always stuck out to me. It's like I always wish I was cool enough to pull that off in conversation sometime. All right, guys, I'm gonna head out of here. End of line.
You know what? I think that's a winner.
That's good.
And lastly, the identity discs. It doesn't really fit into our story, I guess, but those are the 5 that I picked for nostalgic elements of the original.
You know where those discs fit in is when he is going into the final battle. One of the bosses has to be dealt with those identity discs.
Mm-hmm. That would be, okay, I could see that. Like, that's the weapon of choice kind of thing. Has to be used. All right.
Yep. You know what? You hit everything I like, too. And I think it's more the visuals. I think the light cycle has to be there. I think the disc has to be there. I think the recognizer has to be there. I don't think the battle tank needs to be there necessarily. but I want the recognizers to be ominous. I want them to be I can't think of the name of it. I'm drawing a blank here. What is it? The Sentinels from the X-Men, where these like massive things that are a threat the second they show up. Here they were small. I want them to be massive and frightening. And they are basically the police of this world. To me, that's a necessity. I think that... Can
we have a better name than Recognizer, though?
Yeah. Do I have one? No.
I'm just saying, like, I just think that name is dumb. I just really have always hated it. What are they?
The
what are they
Recallinator. I recalled it. It's the Recallinator. No?
Oh, man. Oh, man.
No,
don't give it a name. Yeah. Don't give it a name. Just let it be there. Don't give it a name.
Just make it be big and scary.
Just let it be there.
I definitely think they don't need the Solar Sailor. That is one thing that I think was dumb. If you want to put it in, okay, but I think we get enough of the nostalgia by having the elements that have been discussed already and adding in big ass recognizers.
All right. Any other nostalgic moments?
For me, no.
Yeah. Okay.
No.
We can wipe away a lot of that script. So
yeah, you can wipe away all of the freaking frisbees, but now they're part of the boss battle. Damn it! All right,
I like frisbees.
I don't. I hated them. All right, so here's the last clip from the original Tron.
Hey! Hold it right there. Yes. What do you mean, yes? Yes. Is that all you can say? No. Anything else? Yes. Positive and negative, huh? You're a bit. Yes. Well, where's your program? Isn't he gonna miss you? I'm your program. Yes. Another mouth to feed.
Okay, now it is time for the final pitch. That's where we take everything you just heard and somehow construct a coherent narrative and put it into a movie parody trailer form, voiced with the media stylings of Wayne Henderson of MediaVoiceovers.com. Without further ado, this is Wayne Henderson telling you our version of Tron.
Greetings, programs. You might have figured out by now the world you believe is your reality is not. You have been deceived and your world has been consumed by the Master Control program. This MCP is rebooting mankind in its own image. The programs you see before you are not your friends. They are nothing more than digital signatures. You have each been celebrating your own false deity. My name is Kevin Flynn. This is my final warning to MCP. I'm coming for you. When we meet, you'll know me only as Tron. End of line, man.
All right. Great job.
Nice job, Wayne.
Very good.
I'm ready to go see it now.
Yep, I'm in.
I'm in. My version was better. All right, so would you guys see this completed movie now that it's out there and for the world to hear?
Totally.
Well, I'm going to see it if it's got Tron on it anyway, but I really like what we came up with. I'm definitely on board.
Yeah, you know what? I think I actually am more interested in this than the Tron sequel. That when that came out, it looked cool, but I didn't go. Mm-hmm. This, I'm going.
Is it because it was too visually? That's all it was. You could just tell it was just visual.
You could tell. Yeah, you could tell it was just popcorn. So this has some substance. This is cool.
Yeah, I have very little interest in the synopsis you gave for the Jared Leto version. It just doesn't sound appealing for me for some reason. Not like I'm not going to see it, but
what if he has a grill? What if he has?
I was just gonna say if he has the grill, baby.
I'm just gonna play you really, really bad. I'm just gonna do that. Yeah.
Oh.
No.
All right. Whatever.
I'm gonna just say please don't.
All right. Well, that's gonna do it. Remember, we're at Wayne Henderson, MediaVoiceovers.com. Rob, plug yourself, sir. Where can people find you?
Oh man, I'm on all sorts of shows. You can find my company. Let's do it this way. I'm going to just focus on two. You can find the company on the internet at southgatemediagroup.com, where we have all of our shows on there. We have about 90-some shows. Find us on iTunes and Stitcher and Google Play and everywhere. The show that I'm going to really pimp out right now is This Week in Geek, because we're just about to have our 100th episode, and it's a lot of fun. It's just a bunch of joking around about geek stuff. Doesn't get any better than that, right? And you can find that on Twitter at SMG_TWIG for This Week in Geek. You can also find us on Facebook and find us on iTunes and Stitcher and everywhere else. We have a YouTube channel for it too. So lots of stuff to find with us. If you go to southgatemediagroup.com, you can find links to all of it.
Sweet. All right, Scotty, what about you?
I'm also on a couple of podcasts myself. I host the Gaming Outsider podcast, which is a video game podcast all about gaming and especially a community that follows us on Facebook. You can find that at Facebook.com/groups/The Gaming Outsider. We've got a Twitter handle, which is at The GoCast. My personal Twitter handle is at Scotty Lindsay. That's Scotty with an IE, Lindsay with an AY. And I also do the Hollywood Outsider with some weirdo. And that is thehollywoodoutsiders.com. And you can also listen to both of those podcasts. Hollywood Outsider is all about movies, TV shows, all kinds of entertainment, trivia, news, all that good stuff. Our Twitter handle there is at BuyPopcorn.
Hey! Well, I don't have to do much now, so sweetness.
Right.
Yeah, you can find me on the Hollywood Outsider, also the Blacklist Exposed, Beyond Westworld when Westworld is on, and of course, Remake This Movie Right, which our email here is remakethismovieright@gmail.com, and we're on Twitter at RemakeRight. The website is remakethismovieright.com, and please, if you enjoy the show or you enjoy other shows, share them on your social media outlets, and we would appreciate it. Go put it on Reddit, go put it on Facebook, Twitter, whatever you use to tell people those bitchin' recipes and all the things that Hollywood is doing wrong. Use those for good and get the Remake This Movie Right show out there. That's going to do it for this episode. The credits have rolled on this remake. Please be sure to come back for the next one. And remember that every film you love will get a reboot someday. I guarantee it. And only you can remake that movie right.